Welcome, everybody, to Miss Valley Entertainment News, and my name is Dread, and I'm going to call this video, as you probably already know because you clicked on it, Modders Are Not Your Slave Labor. Now, there are two ways to react to a lot of the things that are going on in the gaming community right now. Act or react to it. One is to react with passion, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. Some people, though, will get turned off by passion. Some people will get triggered by passion. That is one of the issues with it, right? The other way is with logic and facts. And logic and facts, some people will get bored by it and won't want anything to do with it because it doesn't have any passion. So it's a tricky balancing beam to watch. Now, I've reacted to some of what's going on with Bethesda and Starfield on this channel already, and I've given some facts and some opinions, and I've talked about it a little bit logically. I've also blurted out some stuff that was pretty passionate. I am both a logical and passionate gamer, as many of you out there are. Now, I don't want anybody to think I'm just picking on Bethesda or I'm just picking on Starfield right now. Let's be serious here. There's been some stinker games and some companies that have fallen on hard times lately. Okay, we all know this. BioWare cannot, for the life of them, put out a freaking game. Look what happened with Diablo. I mean, there's other games out there that are going through tough times and getting roasted and called out. Starfield is still in the crosshairs right now, which is why we're talking about it. And let's be honest, I started this channel when the Diablo stuff was already dying off and Starfield was just picking up. So that's why we're hitting on this right now. This is not an attack directly on Bethesda, nor it is an attack directly on Starfield, nor is it an attack on anyone who likes either Bethesda or Starfield or both. God bless you if you do. I have a place in my heart for Bethesda because of Skyrim. I truly do. I cannot actually hate Bethesda. What I can do is refuse to stand up for some of the things I think they're doing. That's what gets me passionate and gets me excited at times. Now, Legendary Drops has put out this video. He calls developer exploits community to fix Starfield. I think this is an excellent approach he's taken. There is passion in here, but there is also a lot of facts and just a lot of let's look at it and appeal to people. And I want to cover this not so much for my facial reactions and whatever to this video. I want to cover this because I think it's important information for people who are gamers to hear and to ponder and to mull over at the very least. Whether you agree with it or not is entirely up to you, and it's based on your opinion, your feelings, and what you know to be true and don't know to be true, or believe to be true, and believe to not be true. That's the fact. Okay. So we're gonna take a look at what Legendary Drops has to say. By the way, hell of a nice guy. If you don't follow his channel, you really should be. Glad to see his channel has taken off lately. Could happen to a nicer fellow. Let's dive into what old Legendary Drops here has to say. Old. He's not old. I'm old.
Bethesda is known for some of the most iconic RPGs of all time. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you have played one in the past, if you're not playing one right now.
Right. Absolutely.
But Bethesda's not just known for their RPGs. They're also known for having one of the most, if not the most, active modding communities in all of gaming.
Okay, there's no denying these are facts. Bethesda is known for their RPGs. Okay, they are known for it. It is true. Bethesda is known for their modding community. Absolutely, both of these things are true, right? So we're not having any issues here, I don't believe. Let's move on.
When you think of modding games, Skyrim and Fallout tend to just be synonymous.
Absolutely.
Look, Bethesda's made some of my most favorite RPGs. If it wasn't for Morrowind, there's a really good chance I would have never even gotten into fantasy games to begin with.
More old school than me, but I feel the same way about Skyrim.
There's dialogue surrounding Starfield that's really bothered me, and nobody's taking it seriously. Oh, there's a bug in the game. Don't worry, the modders will fix that.
No, he's not saying there's a problem with the modders fixing it. He's saying, I believe what he's saying is there's a problem. He has a problem with the way people are looking at it and shrugging it off. Is that what you're getting out of this? Tell me. Because I am sharing this video with you and reacting to it because there's information in here everybody, I believe, who's a gamer needs to hear.
Oh, there's some content missing, like maps or a bad UI. Don't worry, modders will fix that too. Man, I really wish there were ground vehicles. That would totally make this game a lot better.
Hey, modders can do that.
Don't worry, modders will put that in.
They can too. They're amazing.
Now, why I really like how excited people are for the modding community and how supportive they are of the modding community, how excited they are for the future of the game, there's some problems that arise from this. I'm wondering if this is something that's going to be taken advantage of, whether it's already happened or not. And even more so, I'm really afraid for what this means for the future of consumers that play games that openly allow mods to begin with.
I had to put on our thinking caps and just think about that. Is modders and the modding community being taken advantage? Are they being taken advantage of now? Or are they on the road to being taken advantage of? I'm not going to answer the question for you, but I'm going to say think about that very hard. I am very big on the modding community. I am on Nexus Mods literally every day to see what new mods drop for Skyrim. I'm big in the Skyrim community. I like to get into some modding for Skyrim myself at some point when I have the time to learn it. 40 to 50 mods probably on average per day come out for Skyrim. I know Fallout has a lot of mods for it. I haven't installed any or done anything with them, but I'm aware of them. I certainly looked through them before. I'm aware of how big this community is and how special these people are that create these things.
When I think about Bethesda and I look back, I mean, I really loved Skyrim. I was a sucker that bought the game more than once. I sunk hundreds of hours into it and kept coming back for more. Yeah. But I feel like bugs and missing features, especially back in 2011, were much more forgivable. Not because I understood the struggles of game design, but because I just wasn't used to playing games that were fixed post-launch. I grew up in an era in which you got what you got. I had to like the games that I got because otherwise I had Christmas and my birthday. And outside of that, I would have to be paying for the game myself, and I just didn't have
be lucky to
get
that. 2 games a year, even as an adult, a young adult.
Corrupted save file.
I'm telling you, as a young adult, I would be lucky to buy 2 games a year because I was paying $40 to $50 for them. And these are hard copies of games. I damn well expected the game to run properly and play properly, for sure. Back in those days, you didn't have games being put out in boxes with discs and CDs that didn't run properly. There was nobody to fix it if that happened.
Thank God I wanted to try a new build. Quest was bugged. Maybe I'll get it on the next run. I just brushed it off. However, that was then and this is now. Today, I have higher expectations for developers, especially Bethesda. I know that players end up just becoming beta testers over time. Now, I don't want modders fixing my games, not their bugs, and most definitely not adding content that should be there in the first place.
Yeah, content that should be there in the first place. That's huge. Things that absolutely should be in the game and the company has to be in the game and isn't there. That's not just Bethesda. That's not just Starfield. That happens a lot still nowadays. And yes, there are a lot of companies, the games, they come out buggy. But you could probably pick a handful out of those who don't fix most of those bugs. They don't choose fix them themselves. They choose to let the modding community do it for them and never go and address those bugs. Even the game-breaking ones sometimes themselves. They let somebody else do it. Think about that. A professional companies, because there's more than one. Professional companies that rely on the modding community to fix the bugs that their game launched with. They might fix some, but they won't fix them all because the modders will do it. And B, the absolute bare bone minimum stuff that the game should have had in it that they didn't bother to put in the game. They're like, the modders will add it in. We're fine. I'm going to ask a question. When a gaming company does that, do you think it's a smart thing for them to be doing? Like, hey, they're saving money, they're saving time, they're working with the community, and that's smart. Do you fall in that category? Or do you fall in the category of they should be ashamed of themselves? That they're putting out product that people who are not professionals and not getting paid can turn around and fix in one day. And they were too lazy or too apathetic or just didn't care enough to do it. Which of those do you fall into?
Modders do everything from fixing game-breaking bugs to improving graphics and expanding gameplay. Modders have extended the life of games like Fallout 4 and Elder Scrolls far beyond their initial release.
That's true.
The Skyrim and Fallout 4 community are still modding today. Hell, there are YouTube channels that are dedicated to it that have hundreds of thousands of views even still. While the people who make mods and use mods undoubtedly love what they do, especially the freedom that's given to them playing games like Skyrim and Fallout 4, I'm starting to believe that modders are being taken advantage of as they step in to remedy issues that the studio itself should be there to address.
Yes,
we've had the discussion many times on this channel about wanting games that were finished or feature complete or just not buggy.
Studio should be addressing these things. Why are they not?
Where credit is due, and I will say that Starfield is absolutely the least buggiest game that I've played from Bethesda. It still is a really weird place for us to be in. We've been normalized by their content in the past, relatively more forgiving than we should be, especially today.
That's
to the
true,
point
I think.
where we think it's acceptable that both Xbox and Bethesda come out and put out a headline saying this is going to be our least buggiest game of all time. Like, that's a sales pitch. That's like going to a car dealership and the dude's just like, hey man, this is the least likely car to explode.
Should that not be embarrassing?
What? Are you serious? Like, it should be an expectation of ours that the game is going to be in the...
Why are they not embarrassed to say these things? Why? Ask yourself, honestly, why?
Best state it possibly can be, especially coming from a AAA company, especially coming from a company that's then owned by Xbox in the first place, given all of the pressures that Starfield has to succeed, because the Xbox gaming platform really hasn't been all that great for quite a while now. A lot of their releases just haven't hit the mark. This tendency that Bethesda has to release games in buggy or unfinished states always leads to a sense of frustration and disappointment among gamers who are less forgiving than others. Many that still anticipate Bethesda's expansive and immersive worlds, but they end up finding themselves grappling with these persistent technical shortcomings always upon every single release. I mean, Starfield released without having some of the most simplest of features like brightness and contrast settings.
What is up with that?
Bethesda has definitely made efforts to address some of these issues through post-launch patches, and they're going to with Starfield. The frequency and severity of these bugs and different features that are missing from games has continued to define the studio's reputation.
So this is not... Okay, again, no one here has said, nor am I even going to say at this point, Starfield's a bad game. No one said that. What has been said is questioning why they're coming out without the ability to light darkness. Like, you can't... Simple little things that should be in every game, especially a AAA studio game with the backing of Xbox. Why is that not there? Why is it not there? Does Legendary Drops have the answer? Do I have the answer? Do you have the answer? Even if there is no answer to be found, sometimes the questions still have to be asked. Why?
In the eyes of many gamers, that's the reason the company is named Bethesda. The top comment on one of my last videos was someone asking me to investigate whether Bethesda or companies like them were actually taking advantage of their modding communities. And the more I've researched and the more that I've looked into things, yes, they absolutely are. And it's not a hard conclusion to come to because it's something that they've already tried to do in the past. Bethesda's
Opinion or
Creation
fact?
Club was a platform and system that was introduced by Bethesda back in 2017. It allowed players to purchase and download additional content, including mods for games like Fallout 4 and Skyrim. The Creation Club was content that was curated and developed by Bethesda in collaboration with external creators and modders. Unlike traditional mods created by the community, Creation Club content was developed and published by Bethesda. This content was considered official, and it was integrated into the game more seamlessly than traditional mods. Many items and features in the Creation Club were not free. Players had to purchase Creation Club credits, which would then serve as a way for them to be able to buy additional content. This content was just microtransactions, plain as day, regular microtransactions that were placed in a way or packaged in a way to make you feel like you were supporting mod creators by buying it in the first place, using yet again another obfuscated currency in which the player is not allowed to be able to pay the single price for the item that they want, and they're left over with this random currency that they feel FOMO for, and they have to spend more money to be able to buy something else. On top of that,
just like an MMO
creators
does,
were only getting 25% of what they actually made in sales. It's disgusting.
It is. I agree.
And I bet you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, Ian, but we're talking about Starfield. This isn't in Starfield.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, it was already data mined in the last big update for Skyrim. They data mined it out of the stuff in there. Creation Marketplace is coming to Bethesda, and it will be for Skyrim as well as other titles. And you will be paying for your mods. Don't believe me? Listen to Legendary Drops.
In Bethesda's latest update on Twitter, they mentioned mod support through the use of, quote, creations will be available soon. And if you actually take the time to go and read Starfield's EULA that they know that nobody ever actually reads, they specifically mention the use of creation credits. Yes, Starfield soon enough will have one of its own premium currencies.
Virtual currency.
Beyond the Creation Club, I started to research mods that the modding community has been making over the years. And the sheer amount, scope, and quality of some of them is absolutely astonishing.
And it really is. And he's showing Nexus mods here, and absolutely a brilliant site if you're into modding things. Nexus mods, I am a monthly member. I do pay a subscription to that. I don't know what I was going to say, but yeah, it's just, I can verify that between 40 to 50 mods on average come out every day for Skyrim. Skyrim came out in 2011. Okay, it is 12 years old, and to this day, it's still being modded. Does that mean Bethesda put out a great game in Skyrim that stood the test of time? Yes, it does. Would it have lasted this long with this many players still playing without the mods? I don't think it's a stretch to say no. No, it wouldn't have. Might still have some players, might still be going, but the modding community has definitely kept the game alive and even growing the community. That's great stuff. If you want to support modders, you can support Nexus mods by having a monthly subscription, which helps you with your downloads of these mods. Are these guys getting any money out of this? No, they're not. If you want to support other modders, there's modders that do this on their own sites. Got to go sign up for their Patreon and pay a monthly fee to get access to their mods. I've done some of that. So there's other ways to support modders, or find a modder you like who put out some great mods for you that you download for free, and go find a way to buy them a cup of coffee, or to otherwise send them some money to say, hey, I appreciate what you did. There's absolutely ways, if you want to find ways to try to get money to any modders who would accept it. Absolutely. But I think, Bethesda's plan to purchase mods pretty cheaply from mod authors, and then to turn around and sell those mods at a premium. Is that helping the community? It may be helping some of the community, for sure. For sure it might. Those who aren't on PC and can't get on Nexus mods and want their mods, for your Xbox or whatever else, maybe that's a great idea. You tell me. I'm not on console, so I don't know. But is it kind of scummy at the same time? Are you paying pennies on the dollars you're making? And is it more about how much money the company is making than it is how much the modders are making? Hold up the pictures of the modders. Hey, support these guys with your hand out and take the money in. Is that kind of not what's happening? I mean, you could argue it, but can you successfully argue that I'm wrong or just that there's more to it than that?
From simple texture packs and UI overhauls to completely new quests and explorable islands, there's even a remake of Oblivion using Skyrim. And it's not just Skyrim, there's also Fallout. They're doing the same thing there, literally making their own Fallout game in the form of Fallout
Some
London.
of the modders do much better work than the people who work for Bethesda. That's not a lie.
But then I
much
came
better.
across one of the most troubling things, and it's the sheer amount of bug fix mods. There are over 700 individual bug fix mods for Fallout 4 and over 900 for Skyrim. Both games going as far to actually have comprehensive, unofficial patches with thousands of improvements and bug fixes that have been made by modders who are still updating them to this day. The Skyrim unofficial patch was just updated again back in May. Bethesda and Todd Howard on multiple occasions have celebrated the modding community.
So they should.
Why wouldn't they? They're making them money. Quite literally, there are people that are buying Skyrim and Fallout just to be able to play the mods that are out for those games in the first place.
Ka-ching.
Not to mention, they are the best form of free labor that they could ever
and
find.
Free advertising,
They're
too.
out there fixing minor bugs, larger bugs. They're replacing UIs like the Star UI that they already put out for Starfield, one that is far better than the one that they have in the game. There are so many things in Starfield. While I actually do enjoy the game in a lot of different ways, there's so many things
You're allowed
that just boggle my mind. World traversal, inventory management, the UI in general, planet traversal, maps. There's all kinds of different things that should have been in the game in the first place. I'm sitting here scratching my head going, why did they think this is something that would be acceptable?
So there's a question again for the viewer. Why did they think that putting the game out in the state it was in, with the things missing that it was, why did they think that was acceptable to do? Because they've done it in the past, and we've all fallen for it. That's why. And they said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Or in this case, if it is broke, the modders will fix it. Don't change anything we're doing. Let's keep doing things the same way we've been doing for the last 20 years here. Why? Because it makes us money. It keeps us popular. The modders feel good because they're putting out content and fixing things, and they're fluffing up the game for people, making them more excited about the game because the mods, and it's adding free content all over our game and drawing more people to it by putting out the same basic thing we have for the last 20 years with the same basic bugs, the same basic engine. Why is that acceptable?
Why did they think this was something that would be enjoyable to interact with? Now, I want to be clear. Bethesda does patch their games. They do fix bugs, and they do make improvements after launch. However, their reputation precedes them. The sheer volume of the chaos, as Pete Hines would call it, makes it really difficult for them to be able to clear up every single issue with their games. However, that doesn't make it the community's responsibility to clear that stuff up for them.
Responsibility lies where responsibility lies.
Bethesda said that they embrace chaos and could make a less buggy game if they wanted to. Bethesda has undoubtedly adopted this "it will fix itself" attitude, or they just assume that the players are just going to put up with it.
Yeah.
And it's wild how prevalent this is.
I agree.
Modders should be spending time making fun and creative things instead of spending years of the game's early life fixing the things that Bethesda refused to.
Yes.
I've played a pretty significant amount of Starfield, and I will admit, this is the least buggy Bethesda game that I've played. But it still has more than its handful of irritating things.
Yes.
At one point, I had lost all of my equipment that I had earned over time because I used the armory that I built for my ship. By the time that I realized that that equipment was gone, over an hour had passed. I just put the game down and went and played something else. I'm going to be honest with you. The bugs in Starfield are really not that bad, especially in comparison to other Bethesda games in the past. And my headaches with Starfield are completely different things, and that's something I'll cover at a later date. What really bothers me with this game is the zealotry. It's the Xbox fanboys that feel like they have to die on the hill over this game to make sure that everybody knows this is the best game ever in the history of everything.
And nobody but an Xbox fanboy, I'm sorry, but nobody but an Xbox fanboy is out there saying that Starfield is the best game ever made. Or even the best game of the year. I'm sorry. Nobody but one of those fanboys who cannot do anything but pump up something that Xbox puts out because it's Xbox and because they play Xbox. And Xbox has to be the best. Nobody else would be saying it's the greatest game ever or the greatest game even this year. Nobody. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy the game. That doesn't mean you can't like the game. That doesn't mean you can't think the game is pretty decent. You're allowed to think that. But thinking it's the best game of the year or the best game ever, that's a fanatic.
Gave the game a 7 out of 10. Oh my God, you're a liar. This is a shadow plot to try to take down Xbox. You must be a Sony pony. It's the Bethesda fans that are just like, you just must not like Bethesda games. You just must not have played a Bethesda game. It's a Bethesda thing. You just don't understand it. Why is it so foreign to have high expectations for one of the most influential game studios in the history of RPGs that is owned by the richest and most influential software company in the entire world? Be reasonable. But beyond fighting against the criticism, the one thing that we need to pay attention to, and the most harmful thing out of all of the discourse surrounding Starfield, is that there are people that are forgiving Bethesda's behavior for all of their games. And it's because...
All right, he's saying, first of all, he doesn't have a big problem with the bugs in Starfield, okay? So that's not even his issue with the game. He has some other issue. We'll talk about that later. He's saying the big issue is not even the fanaticism. It's forgiving them for what they're doing. All right, let's back this up a little bit.
Thing out of all of the discourse surrounding Starfield is that there are people that are forgiving Bethesda's behavior for all of their games. And it's because they dance this very fine line that's been shrinking for the gaming community for years now. We already complain about games that are finished in unreleased states. Now imagine you have somebody actively encouraging it because they know somebody else is going to fix it for them.
I believe that this is, at this point, we've reached the point where Bethesda and the way they do things is hurting the gaming community more than it's helping them, or more than it's entertaining them. That's my opinion. Yours may differ, but think about what he's saying here. We're just okay with the way they act, which is the same way they acted 20 years ago. As a 35-year-old, can you act the same way you could as a 15-year-old? Try it. You're going to get smacked or put into jail.
Imagine removing the responsibility from the developer entirely, meme on it even, and place that responsibility on a player, on the customer, on the modders of the game. That sounds like any business's wet dream. Who needs a QA when the community places the responsibility on fixing the game or adding features that should be there on someone else entirely?
I find that sad.
If you go right now and you look at the most popular mods for Starfield, they are all things that the developer themselves should have put in the game in the first place. But instead,
whoa! Let's back that up for a minute for users who weren't listening to that sentence.
Any business's wet dream.
Hang on a second.
Who needs a QA when the community places the responsibility on fixing the game or adding features that should be there on someone else entirely?
Here we go.
If you go right now and you look at the most popular mods for Starfield, they are all things that the developer themselves should have put in the game in the first place.
Are you getting that? This is not, there should have been vehicles in the game. There shouldn't have been so much fast travel. You know, the map should have been better. He's not talking about that stuff. He's talking about the stuff that should have absolutely 100% is expected to be in the game before it launches, unless your company is called Bethesda, apparently.
Most popular mods for Starfield, They are all things that the developer themselves should have put in the game in the first place. But instead, it's the modders that are putting it in there. And that's something that is meeting the expectations of the community because it was an expectation that they set. That's how far they put the bar. Because you've heard it. I've heard it. And even if you disagree with everything in this video and you absolutely hate me, and I'm sure I'll hear about it in the comments.
That'll be those, yep.
You cannot fight against me on this because you, just as much as I, have heard, just wait for the mods. The mods will fix that. Just wait for the mods. That's how low the bar is. That we forgive this kind of behavior in the first place.
We'll let our job be done by others.
On some even small
and
things
we'll
like
take the
bugs
profits.
is something that people need to be up in arms over in the first
Piracy
place.
is what it is.
It's
They're pirates.
ridiculous.
Slave labor.
Modders shouldn't be worried
Not
about
right.
trying to fix problems with the game.
Not right.
They should be working on fun stuff.
It's just
They
not
should
right.
Be trying to make more round butt mods or trying to put Fallout on a planet or Skyrim on a planet. But instead they're working on things like DLSS or making a functioning UI or putting maps into the game. And meanwhile, the community is over on Twitter cheering when Bethesda's putting a brightness slider into the game. Are you guys serious?
Yeah. Sad. Super sad.
We're supposed to be holding these companies responsible, not lowering our bar of expectations. That's not the way this works. Look, I can recognize when a game has a great foundation. And this is something that I realized with Diablo 4, a game that I defended foolishly because I realized it did have a great foundation. But then I realized I don't give a shit about what the game could be or what the game will become later.
I see what.
I care about what the game is today.
Yes. Right.
And that's exactly what
now,
you should be
when I
caring
buy
about
it
as
or when
well.
I play it.
Anyway. I love you guys.
My thanks to Legendary Drops. Sir, you're a legend already. Thank you so much. And my thanks to you, the viewer, if you sat through this. I hope you got something out of this. At least you got questions going through your head that maybe you can't answer right now, but maybe by thinking about them, you'll expand how you're thinking about things. I think this is one of these turning points right now. Right around this time of this year, this is a turning point for the gaming industry. We've been pushed and pushed and pushed over the years here with microtransactions, with crappy products coming out, I mean, come on. How much more of this are we going to take? And we, as a gaming community, seem to be lowering the bar instead of raising it. We're celebrating the Baldur's Gate 3 that raises the bar, but we're also celebrating the lowered bar of Bethesda. And isn't it time we took a step back and thought about what we want out of games and said, not going to say Starfield's a bad game, not going to say modders shouldn't be modding it. But somehow, in some way, do we not need to send a loud and clear message to Bethesda and other companies that will do the same sort of thing? That going forward, this isn't acceptable. We don't want to see this continue in the next Fallout game, in the next Elder Scrolls game, whatever else you may throw in there, then the next Starfield game. We don't want to see you continue to do things the way you've done them for 20 years. We don't want you to see you take advantage of the modding community. We want you to put out games that actually have the things in them the games need to have. Take pride in your work. Don't just think with your wallet open, waiting for the money to roll in, because that seems to me like the greed just takes over, and it's like, hey, we'll let the modders do it. Hey, we'll pump up the modders and make them feel good by saying, by talking about them in our press releases and stuff, and saying how we're together with them, and then we'll kind of rope them in and we'll say, hey, come give us your mods. We'll pay you a little bit of money for them, and then we'll help you distribute them while we make a lot of money off your work. Again, thank you to Legendary Drops. Thank you to you, the viewer. My name is Dread, and this is certainly, I hope, been something to think about. This is Miss Valley Entertainment News. Good night, and just like Legendary Drop says, I love you all. Bye bye.